Since the United Nations prohibited the growing of coca in 1961, a fierce battle has erupted over the plant that was sacred to the Incas. A war that brings down governments and finances terrorist groups. A scourge of humanity is how the U.S. government describes the coca leaf and spends billions on its control. But for the peoples of the Andes, coca is a gift of the gods. Chaccheo, chewing coca leaves, has been part of their culture for 5,000 years. Now, the coca leaf has become the symbol of indigenous resistance. A good half of the 80 million people in the Andes region have indigenous roots, and more of them are remembering this and rebelling. This film starts out with a confidential document of the Andean Council of Coca Leaf Producers. Influential political activists united under the battle cry, "Coca or Death." Heading the list is the founder of the Andean Council, Evo Morales. From coca farmer and leader of the socialist MAS party to president of Bolivia. With road blockades and protests against the privatization of natural gas, Evo Morales and his followers brought down the government. Like most of the population of Bolivia, Evo Morales has indigenous roots. When he made it into parliament, the white elite was appalled. They would never have dreamed that a native could have what it takes to be president.
Of course, the street blockades are damaging to our country. But much more damaging to its development is the continual plundering of its natural resources without giving the people a share. That's what's really blockading Bolivia.
This film follows the trail of the coca growers' movement, which shakes Latin America to its foundations. Another name appears in the confidential report, Elsa Malpartida, the Peruvian leader of the coca growers, an oppositionist on the wanted list. Militant activist Elsa is feared in Peru since she brought the whole of Lima to a standstill. She speaks in front of the cameras of a declaration of war by the government. The government, for its part, talks of a campaign by drug terrorists bent on plunging the country into chaos and terror. Elsa Marpartida walks a narrow line between political protest and militant resistance. In Colombia, the Andean Council criticizes the militarization of the drug conflict by the USA. Their spokeswoman is Diana Perafán. As a nurse and human rights activist, she has visited the farthest corners of the country and has witnessed the social consequences of the U.S. anti-drug policy in Colombia. Diana is fighting for the survival of the country's last indigenous communities and has set up a network of people sympathetic to her cause. She is hoping to meet some of them today, but there are risks involved. 30 oppositionists have been murdered in the last few days. Scarcely anyone still dares to speak out in public.
I want to invite you today to help me start a political, very democratic process. And for that, I need the support of all of you. When we talk about controlling drugs, we're talking about the Plan Colombia, the militarization of our country and the social consequences. Particularly here in the south of Cauca, we are going through very difficult times. Hunger and despair are even driving people to abandon their children. We are experiencing extremes that are truly alarming. And it's only organized movements like our indigenous resistance that are still defending human rights here. That is why I have invited you to build up democracy from here, from deep inside our communities.
I work with communities that have been made exiles in their own country by the war against drugs. And I want to tell you that because of our work, which, by the way, is completely voluntary, we get death threats. Simply because we work with the people who are affected.
On the other hand, it's practically impossible to attack the drug trade because it goes right to the heart of the three main players, the guerrillas, the paramilitary, and the state itself. To criticize the state here is not easy, truly not. Which brings us on to the questions of drug politics. One can see why the drug bosses would be happy to have a democracy to their own liking, because how many high-ranking personalities are involved in some way in the drug trade?
4 million people have been made exiles in their own country by the drug war and its consequences. Almost 1 in 10 people in Colombia are fugitives from violence. Diana's father was murdered 20 years ago for political reasons. She still doesn't know who killed him. Left-wing guerrillas and right-wing paramilitaries fight over access to the coca growing areas. On the other side is the army, financed by the USA. Arms cost money, and drug farming finances the arms race between the hostile groups, a vicious circle. The farmers are the ones who suffer, caught in the crossfire between the three highly armed groups, like the Cancuamo people in the north of Colombia. As traditional users of the coca leaf, they are liable to prosecution, but equally, the drug cartels see them as standing in their way too.
De todas maneras, sabemos de que nuestras leyes han sido, son, y seguirán siendo.
We keep to the traditions of our ancestors, even if no one else defends them and no one supports us. We are just following our own laws, because that unites us with all other indigenous peoples. Our laws are not made by men. They are unchangeable because they have their origin in nature itself.
The villages seem to be deserted. Fear of the military and of left-wing guerrillas keeps people off the streets. And as if that wasn't enough, there are the death squads of the right-wing paramilitaries. In this dangerous place, Diana's friend Elsa grew up. Paz y amor, it says on her house. Peace and love. Elsa and her mother fled to the city 3 years ago. Since then, 280 people have been killed here. The murdering hasn't stopped, but Elsa and her mother have come back now. This is their home.
I expect I shall die here too, and I hope they'll bury me here.
Señora Petra, ¿cómo están? Asome la cabeza para ver si es la misma que dejé hace años.
Often it's just a small mistake that people here pay for with their lives. That's what's happened to their neighbor's daughter just behind this fence.
That's where they killed Christina. She was just 15. There was a party that day. Cristina danced with the soldiers. The next day, the army left and the guerrillas came. Because she danced with the soldiers, they dragged the girl from her mother's arms and shot her there and then. She heard the shot and everything. The girl was 15 years old. Death waits around every corner. Whenever I come here, I expect that my time has come. The violence used to be more straightforward. The guerrillas were up here and the death squads of the paramilitary were waiting for us down there. We were caught between all the fronts. But now, the violence has assumed even more incredible dimensions. I haven't ventured here for 3 years.
The army have set up camp above the village, and now the women are having children fathered by the men stationed here. Soldiers' children who are ostracized by the village community and under threat from the guerrillas. Children without fathers, without a future. New blood for the military or the guerrillas. And the soldiers bring new diseases with them. The first AIDS cases have been reported. But resistance is growing. A new generation of young indigenous activists has arrived to reclaim the land that their parents had to leave behind when they fled from the killing. Fighting breaks out all the time on this account. Diana has been invited by the Guambiana tribe. She wants to win their support for the Andean Council of Coca leaf producers, with a view to integrating the many small initiatives into one big movement across national borders. Governor Muelas Utaro was Colombia's first indigenous member of parliament. Now he has returned to his people in order to fight for their rights as leader of the tribe.
There can be no doubt about what is happening here. This policy is destroying the indigenous peoples. It is nothing less than a policy of annihilation, especially when it comes to the question of the coca leaf, which we defend. Like all the peoples who know the culture of the coca leaf, we are now called upon to defend it. And not only to defend it, but to liberate it. But I don't know if we shall live to see it.
Our suggestion is this. We have to become international with the Andean Council, and I know that our brothers in Peru will support us in this. As a representative of the Andean Council, I'm fighting for the removal of the coca plant from the list of illegal drugs. We have coca tea. The leaf is beneficial in so many ways, but the government only sees the illegal side. This struggle is eating my soul. I can't do it alone. I need your support.
Muchas gracias. De nuevo.
Diana is convinced that the spiral of violence can only be broken by legalizing the coca plant. This is what the Andean Council demands. Don't fight the growing of coca, fight the trade in cocaine. But this puts Diana in conflict not only with the government, but also with the guerrillas, and they are just moving into position around the little village.
Yesterday, the guerrillas mined this section of the road because they were expecting a military convoy. They detonated the bombs and several people were wounded and one person died, I think. Today, the whole area is occupied by the military. They arrived yesterday. They have moved into position on the hills and they're trying to hold this road.
The violence will only end, Diana believes, when the farmers take a united stand against all armed groups. Diana hopes that the Andean Council will unite the many fragmented groups and give the farmers a single voice. But that's still a long way away. Diana gets home late, as so often. Sometimes she picks up Marcela, her oldest daughter, who has just turned 16. It's relatively safe in her district of the provincial capital, Popayan, since the neighborhood organized its own security force. Diana's mother wholeheartedly supports her daughter's dangerous mission, even though it gives her many sleepless nights.
You're afraid to speak. You can listen and you can watch, but in Colombia, silence is the rule. So you're risking your life when you speak out like she does. When her father died, she was just 11. She said she wanted to become a lawyer so she could defend the rights of children and old people. I think that's what she's fighting for today. For the rights of the old, of children, of the indigenous people, of the blacks, of everyone. She worries about the whole of humanity.
That same night, Diana leaves for Peru. She's looking for allies for her difficult mission. That's why she sets out on a dangerous journey along the twisting roads of the Coca farmers, to Elsa Marpartida in Peru, and then on to Bolivia. Three days and 3 nights on a bus, if nothing untowards happens, that is. Between 1980 and 2000, terror reigned in Peru. 69,000 people, most of them innocent farmers, died in the war between the left-wing guerrillas and the right-wing military. The state finally came out on top. What was left of the armed groups withdrew into the jungle on the edge of the Amazon basin, into the lawless regions. Here, the government is pursuing a similar anti-drug campaign to the one in Colombia, again with the support of the USA. Morning roll call at the Santa Lucia military base. How is morale? As high as the sun and the stars. The pupil does not fall from the sky, he is made. The attainable is already achieved. We strive for the unattainable. The National Police of Peru.
Our police presence is part of a complex strategy in the battle against the drug trade and against the remains of the terrorist groups who have formed an alliance with the drug traffickers. The Santa Lucia military base is very important, one of the most important in the country. A military stronghold that's part of the agreements with the USA. The Americans look after all the logistics, the equipment, and the training. Also the training abroad, mainly in the US, but also in other countries in South America.
Entrenamiento en el extranjero, básicamente en los Estados Unidos.
They do courses in Colombia that we take part in, for example.
En Colombia, por ejemplo, realizan cursos donde asistimos.
You'll now be introduced to the products that we're looking to seize. They are substances that are used in the production of drugs. I will now read out what you're going to have to learn by heart, because that's going to be the mainstay of your daily battle. And these are the substances: acetone, ethyl acetate, ethanoic acid, sulfonic acid, sulfuric acid, hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, anhydrous acetic acid, benzene, sodium bicarbonate, potassium carbonate or potash.
The drug barons buy chemicals by the ton in the U.S. and Europe. They are shipped to Peru, then loaded onto trucks, and finally carried in small canisters to the drug laboratories in the jungle. Units from Santa Lucia regularly find so-called mashing pits where the coca leaves, with the help of massive amounts of chemicals, are turned into coca paste, the stage before cocaine. It takes 300 kilos of coca leaves to make 1 kilo of cocaine. 300 kilos of dried coca leaves earn the farmers $600 US. In Europe, 1 kilo of cocaine costs around 50,000 euros. All the farmers are left with, in the end, is soil, ruined by chemicals.
The challenge we face is to get it across to the farmers, particularly in the Amazon region of Peru, that they are destroying the land they cultivate. They are losing it through the activities of the drug trade. The farmers have to understand that it takes 200 liters of kerosene to produce 1 kilo of cocaine. For 1 ton of cocaine, the soil of Amazonia is contaminated with 200,000 liters of kerosene, which obviously ruins our land and makes it unusable for agriculture.
Lo que obviamente va a degradar nuestros territorios y va a hacer perder la capacidad productiva de esta zona.
This is why we have to explain to the coca producers the consequences of what they are doing.
A efectos de que retraiga esta su actividad.
But protecting the environment is not the coca farmers' primary concern. For many of them, it's a struggle just to survive. They see nothing of the huge profits of the drug cartels. The lucky ones can manage to pay for the education of their children in the hope that they might have a better life. This is Elsa Marpartida's world. She also used to earn her living from growing coca, and then she became the leader of the coca leaf farmers. It was their votes that got her elected to parliament, because she's one of them, and she understands their problems. The main talking point is an alternative to the coca plant. The government organization Davida is trying to persuade the farmers to grow other commercial crops.
We don't even have the basic essentials anymore. Alternative cultivation is a total failure. It's all very well for the engineers to talk. We're absolutely at the end of our tether.
They want us to plant trees as an alternative now. I asked them, what am I supposed to live on until we can harvest the wood? With the oxygen from the trees, the government can use carbon trading to reduce its foreign debt. But what does that do for us? No, we can't accept that. We have to go on organizing, okay?
Hay que seguir adelante nomás. Ya compañero. No hay problema. Listo.
Por eso directamente, ya pues señor, como usted vive en Lima, va en forma directamente a Estados Unidos.
When the coca farmers are given the opportunity to practice legal forms of agriculture and to supply national and international markets, which is just what we're doing in this country, then we see, and we have clear proof, that the farmers, a substantial majority of the farmers, also benefit from this. And the evidence is indisputable. One can travel around the country and see for oneself. We have around 6,000 families at the moment in the UN programs, and they export their coffee, cocoa, and they sell their palm hearts and vegetable oil. They make $3,000, $4,000, up to $5,000 per hectare, which is more than they would from growing coca. And they send their children to school and benefit from a healthy development.
But when Elsa travels around the country, the coca farmers show her a different reality. Often there is no transport for the alternative products and no buyers. Or the soil is unproductive. Although it's illegal, although the government has declared war on the farming of coca, instead of palm hearts, or pineapple, or cocoa, or coffee, it's only coca plants that flourish here, well hidden in remote little clearings. While they welcome Elsa, the farmers vent their anger against the people from Devida, who are responsible for helping them find alternative crops. Elsa defends their actions.
We have the right to rebel. It isn't rebellion, it's self-defense. We are oppressed. They rape our daughters and kill our people. We cannot stand by and do nothing. The Constitution gives us the right to rise up and cry, enough. Therefore, there is no need to be afraid.
If there was any reason for self-criticism, it would be that Devida didn't use the opportunity when it arose to promote the presence of the government in these regions. This part of the country is desperately poor. The people and their cooperatives are largely left to themselves without any support. To see a doctor, they face a journey of 6 or 7, sometimes even 8 hours, and often there aren't even any medicines. The children have to travel long distances, sometimes by canoe, to get to school. We have realized that the biggest problem is the absence of the state.
But there is still no sign of the state here, the perfect platform for Elsa Malpartida.
Compañeros, I tell you, as sure as I'm standing here, we have a hard fight on our hands. But it's not impossible. We are going to go out on the streets and tell the president, we won't be driven into exile. We can defend ourselves, thank God. And so, thank you, comrades. Thank you for your support. Our only hope is to fight on together. Many, many thanks for that.
The government relies totally on military strength in its battle against drugs. The Peruvian anti-drug police, trained by American experts, launches a large-scale operation from the Santa Lucia base. New coca plantations in the Tocache district are their target. Elsa has been alerted by the coca growers. A truce was agreed only recently with the government, which she also signed. The government promised the farmers that no more coca fields would be destroyed until they all had the chance to get the licenses for their fields checked. The farmers are up in arms. The government has gone back on its word, they tell Elsa. But nerves are fraught on the other side too. 4 policemen and 1 attorney lost their lives in an attack here just recently. It's a red alert situation. The coca farmers see in Elsa their last hope. As a member of parliament, she's their only chance to get their point across to the decision makers in Lima. Despite the numerous roadblocks, Elsa is waved through. In her region, she even has the support of the local police. While things come to a head for Elsa, Diana has now also survived in the regional capital Tingo Maria. The last time the two of them met, Elsa was on the wanted list as the ringleader of the coca growers. Since her election to parliament, Elsa has been temporarily removed from the list. She now has parliamentary immunity. Diana's first port of call is the local Coca Growers Association. The coca farmers are linked up in a nationwide network throughout Peru, even though their organizations are mostly not recognized by the state.
Tell me, where can I find Elsa?
Senora Malpartida, the Member of Parliament, she left for Tocache early this morning. There are clashes there between the coca growers and the anti-drug police.
Is there rioting?
Yes, and she's there to see for herself.
Elsa and the farmers arrive at the disputed field, sure of victory because they have a document to prove that the field has been authorized. But the field workers of the anti-drug police have already started ripping out the plants. Unlike in Colombia, spraying with defoliating chemicals is forbidden in Peru, so far.
You're just the mercenaries of imperialism here in Peru. You are the real terrorists.
Raiding our land and leaving us to starve. I want to talk to your boss.
Elsa and the government recently signed a truce, but a lot of the details are unclear. Elsa's understanding of the agreement is that every farmer can grow coca legally as long as he is on the register. But the government only wants to register those farmers who can prove they do not grow for the drug trade. But things are not always so clear-cut. In their poverty, many farmers don't pay too much attention to where the coca leaves really end up. Knowingly or unknowingly, they accept the drug trade. The man in charge of the anti-drug police is aware of the problem, but his orders are clear. Fields that are found within a kilometer of a mashing pit must be destroyed.
There's a mashing pit just over there for producing cocaine. and another one there. We've checked everything. We know where the drugs are being made. And who knows what you are up to.
But today, there is no fight. To avoid escalation, the military and the police withdraw, this time at least. Operations like this one are carried out daily. People get killed all the time. The coca farmers mine their fields. The police sometimes shoot back. Elsa tries to speak to the minister in Lima to warn him of the likelihood of roadblocks and riots. At the same time, she offers to mediate.
Y estoy llegando yo acá a la base de Santa Lucía, no sé, con alguien tengo que conversar ahí porque tenemos.
Then they approach the detested military base. For Elsa, Santa Lucía is primarily a stronghold of the Americans. They allow her in today, much to her surprise. She even gets to talk to the director of drug control operations and to make her complaint to him.
The farmers say they are abused and mistreated by the military units and the police. I wasn't prepared to believe them until I saw it today with my own eyes. The issue was a piece of land that belonged to a woman who was able to produce documents proving that her crop has been licensed by the government. Why don't you concentrate on the farmers who cultivate their fields illegally and are not registered? Because they're the ones whose coca really ends up in the drug trade.
Come on now, be honest. These plantations have never been registered with ANACO.
We have to give every farmer who wants to grow coca legally the chance to register. That's what this is all about. If we are to have any success in fighting the drug trade, this is the way to go about it. If we have 100 coca growers and only 30 of them register, we go for the other 70 and destroy their fields.
It would be very sad for Peru if we became a drug state, where the major figures in politics and business are directly or indirectly involved in the drug trade. We've already got people like Elsa Malpartida in Parliament. And this trend is continuing to grow because of these associations of illegal coca farmers.
Con estas organizaciones de productores cocaleros ilegales.
Although the government harshly criticizes Elsa Malpartida and her coca growers, state laboratories are also researching into the positive effects of the coca leaf. Because aside from the cocaine alkaloids, which only constitute 1/1000th of the total mass, the coca leaf has many virtues. It contains a lot of minerals and vitamins. It's a recognized antidote to altitude sickness, and it assuages hunger, thirst, and fatigue.
People from all over the world have got to know our coca products when they have visited Peru, and they are all enthusiastic about the excellent qualities of the coca leaf. ANACO has a big problem with the export ban. Because the coca leaf is labeled as a narcotic, we're forbidden from selling extracts from the coca leaf overseas. It would be important for ANACO to be able to take advantage of the markets for the legal use of the many positive qualities of the coca leaf.
In Peru, it is the prerogative of the state to organize the use of coca. When it's a matter of legalizing the export of coca tea, for example, there are surprising parallels with what Elsa is demanding.
When you think that if everyone on this earth consumed just one bag of coca tea, there wouldn't be any coca leaves left for the drug trade. Because then we'd be in a position to use Peru's total coca production to make coca tea. And there'd be nothing left over for the drug trade.
Elsa was hiding in this house in the country in the years when she was on the wanted list. As the leader of the coca growers, she was constantly in conflict with the government. As a member of parliament, she can now provide a modest degree of affluence for her daughters. They are just doing their school leaving exams, and Elsa hopes they will go on to university. She doesn't want them to have to live from growing coca. After 5 days on the road, Diana has arrived here too. She hopes to be able to win Elsa's support for her campaign in Colombia. They've met before in La Paz, Cuzco, and Lima, but today for the first time Diana's visit is a private one to Elsa's Coca, her own coca garden. The declared aim of the Andean Council is to unite the indigenous peoples from Bolivia to Colombia in their fight against oppression. The appeal to the memory of Tawantinsuyu, the old Inca Empire, is intended to help overcome today's national borders. Diana and Elsa are demanding more self-determination and rights for the indigenous peoples of the Andes. By doing so, they are challenging the powerful elites and going against the plans of the United States.
We have to jump at the chance to build up something new, because this is an historic opportunity and we may not get another one.
Evo Morales has become president of Bolivia, a coca farmer and a llama herdsman. Someone like that can change things because he fights for his country and his people, for his culture and his nation, for the poor and not for the major corporations. Our culture will be respected because the president shows the way, just as our ancestors did. Look, Diana, it looks like a mouth, and they say it's the kiss of the Virgin Mary, because this coca leaf was the medicine of the Incas. The Virgin Mary kissed it to protect the plant from destruction. We are proud when our Machu Picchu flickers across the world's television screens and people say, "One of the 7 wonders of the world, wow!" But why don't we say how this Machu Picchu was built? By people chewing coca leaves. Diana, if they eradicate the coca plant, they are eradicating Machu Picchu too. They are annihilating our Incas, our race, our dignity, and our identity.
That is what is happening in Latin America. They are uprooting us, they are defoliating us, and leaving behind lifeless soil.
But there aren't any less drugs.
That's right, they have failed. There are more drugs consumed today than ever before. So here is not where the problem lies.
What is their strategy, for heaven's sake? There are 8 lawsuits against me at the moment. They've been suspended because I have parliamentary immunity. But the day I leave Parliament, I shall go straight to prison. We have to learn not to be afraid and just carry on. We have to explain to the whole world that fighting the drug trade doesn't have to mean fighting coca. New ways will have to be found if they really want to fight drugs.
Diana has set off for La Paz in Bolivia by bus over the high plateau of the Andes, 3,500 meters above sea level. She wants to talk to Evo Morales and see for herself how Bolivia has changed with a coca farmer as president. Right in the center of the city, there's a huge coca market. There are farmers here from every part of the country. Coca is changing hands by the sackload. It's all perfectly legal, with the approval of the authorities. Unbelievable for Diana from Colombia, where a war has been fought for 30 years in the name of the coca leaf.
That's the membership number, this is the ID card number, and here's the stamp of the trade association.
State control is the Bolivian government's answer to drug abuse. Every coca grower has to register and join a syndicate. These syndicates then watch over the route taken by the leaves from the grower to the consumer, an attempt to prevent the coca leaves from disappearing into the drug trade. The latest trend is organic farming of the coca leaves.
Apart from the taste, what's special about these leaves?
These ones here can be chewed as they are. They're absolutely free of chemicals.
International agreements oblige Bolivia to reduce her acreage of coca plantations drastically. But Morales' government is ignoring all that. This puts Bolivia internationally on the margins of legality and provokes a direct confrontation with the USA. In order to justify its position, the government has now commissioned a study with the aim of establishing how much coca needs to be grown to cover the demand for its traditional use. The person responsible for the country's coca policy is Asterio Villarroel, Member of Parliament and Evo Morales' right-hand man. He's also responsible for the Andean Council.
When I last spoke with your president, Evo Morales, I said to him what I say to you now. In the name of the indigenous peoples of Colombia, in the name of the Afro-Colombian communities and the organized growers, I beg you to help Colombia on an international level. We want to fight this battle. We are ready to fight.
Evo has talked to me about it. He says we must support the Andean Council of Coca Leaf Producers.
And last time I said to him something that I'm going to repeat now. Please, is it possible that at our next meeting we can have here representatives of the different communities as well as myself? Outstanding personalities from the opposition who are against the policy of oppression in Colombia.
Porque se nos militariza, se nos judicializa.
There is no meeting with Evo this time. He has other problems at the moment. The east of the country, which is rich in raw materials, wants to succeed. There's a threat of civil war. Natural gas is the issue again, of course, but it's also a question of power. Diana knows that even in Bolivia, the battle is not yet won. At the moment, she can't expect support for her stricken homeland. She sets off on the journey home, 5,000 kilometers over the Andes, from Bolivia via Peru and Ecuador to Colombia. Tawantinsuyu, it was called, 500 years ago, this whole territory, under the rule of the Incas. A Among the peoples of the Andes, the myth of the return of the Incas still lives on today. The Spanish quartered the last Inca ruler and buried his body in 4 places. But legend has it that the Inca is still alive, and on the day when his bones are united again, he will rise up and liberate his country. Till then, the battle over the sacred plant of the Incas will continue.